I guess that's the thing which has really gotten me the opportunity to become involved in something that I really care about. So just a couple of things that we want to look at in this area of coaching a skill. I want to have a look at the idea of learning competence, and Jarvi and I have had a bit of a chat about this before, and I kind of get the sense that that you might have touched on that idea so far this weekend. We want to have a look at skill analysis and at coaching the skills. So most of, probably around about the next hour, we're going to be spending outside, actually moving around and doing stuff. So this concept of learning competence, I've seen it kind of explained in a number of ways. Just checking to make sure that one of the first things that I did when I was working up at Sacred Heart College with these girls is that typically the first thing that our first training session with any team I'd work with, it would be in the classroom, and especially with high school kids, and we'd do like a whiteboard session on what's our team about, and what are the rules that you guys want to apply for us over this course of the season, and what do you guys want to achieve over the course of the season, and what role do you want me to play? So started doing this with the girls, started writing up these things, looked at the pen, and it's not a whiteboard marker, and they figured it out after about 30 seconds, because they clearly recognised the pen, but I kept writing for about a minute or so before I realised. So if you want to get a tip on how to get like permanent marker off a whiteboard, if you just get like a whiteboard marker and then just scribble over the permanent marker, then that allows you to rub probably about 95% of the permanent marker off, but it still leaves a faint line. Okay, so getting on to this idea of learning competence. So this is like something that so we do quite a bit of work in high schools with kids who are learning how to become coaches, and we talk about this idea of how can we know how to do stuff, and we can just do stuff without even thinking about it. And so we talk about the idea of competence or learning competence, and it goes like this. Okay, and these terms might be familiar with you all. Okay. So so this is kind of a matrix-looking thing. So when we're typically when someone is learning how to do a skill, how to do something, okay, if they're starting from like real ground zero, we talk about them being unconsciously incompetent. Okay, so that talks about, so when I'm unconsciously incompetent in regards to, say, performing a skill, it's a skill that I'm incompetent, so I can't do it. I'm unconscious about it, so I don't know that I can't do it. Okay, so once I start to work on this and I realise that, I don't know, so I'm not very good at, say, at hitting a left-handed volley in tennis, okay, until I start thinking, okay, so then I start thinking about developing that skill, and I understand that there's some significant gaps in my ability to execute that skill. So I've moved from being unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent. Okay, so there are gaps, and I know that there are gaps. Okay, and as I identify those gaps and start working on them, and then become able to execute a skill, then we start moving down to here, which is CC, which is talking about being consciously competent. Okay, so what do you reckon conscious competence means?
I think about doing it.
Yeah, so I have to really concentrate on doing something. I can do it, but I have to really concentrate on doing it, right? And then as we work away, spend more time in purposeful training, we can see our players moving from being consciously competent to unconsciously competent. All right, so what does that mean?
Doing skill without thinking, obviously.
Yeah, so you can just do it. Okay, so what's an example of being unconsciously competent?
Breathing.
Pardon me?
Breathing.
Breathing? Yep, what else? Okay, who drives? Okay, most of the people in the room drive. Okay, so when I think about like driving my manual car. So I live up in Taradale. I can remember when I was learning how to drive, I'd get in the car, start it up, and then I'd have to be thinking about, clutch in, change gear, clutch in, into first, pull away, release the clutch, build up revs, clutch in, second gear, release the clutch, build up revs, so on and so forth. Okay, so does that resonate with anyone, like when you're learning to drive? Okay, so that's an example of being consciously competent, but within a couple of weeks, I was doing all of those things, so without even thinking, so I'm unconsciously competent. Okay, so for example, so if I was a beginner driver, drive from my place in Taradale to here, I could probably recall what I did, where I changed gear and all that sort of thing, because I would have been thinking about it at the time. This morning, no chance. You just get in and drive. Okay, so when we're talking to kids, that's that's like an example of what we use to paint a picture of unconscious competence. So one of the problems with skill development and our players being at a level that's unconsciously competent at being able to execute a skill, one of the problems is that they're able to reach a plateau in executing that skill. So what's something that we can do in order to be able to shift someone who's at this level of executing skill back in here so that we can actually start to help them progress that skill? What can we do as coaches? Put them under stress. Great. How do we put our players under stress in performing a skill? Yeah, putting a time limit, or maybe what else? Fatigue them. Yep. Anything else? What puts players under stress? Opposition or competition, right? So in our as we're coaching, a big challenge for us is to be able to recognise our players' ability to develop skill, get to a level, but then to put that skill under duress to be able to move them back along this matrix in order to be able to bump them up again. Okay, so that's what we are going to have a little bit of a practice at doing now. So you're going to jump up and you're going to join me outside on the grass. Just grab my hat.